Ahmed, is it on? Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting us the tawfiq, the capability to fulfill the commandment that He has placed upon our shoulders, congregating in the masjid on Yawm al-Jumu'ah, listening to wa'az, nasiha, trying our best to apply this deen in our lives. We thank Allah for this opportunity. We also beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His best salutations, peace and mercy upon Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family, his sahaba, and all of those who follow his way. And we also beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate the pain and suffering and difficulty that has befallen this ummah, whilst we acknowledge and we know that everything happens according to the hikmah, wisdom, and decision and will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us happiness, goodness, and allow us to hand over all of our affairs to Him and trust in Him and know that everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are all aware of the genocide that's taking place right before our eyes. Our brothers and sisters being killed left and right to a high degree. And what's even more atrocious is the excuses that people make, that this is not such, that people have a right to do this. It's such that it weighs heavily on anyone who has iman. Let alone whether or not this is our brothers or sisters, anyone in the world, if they go through this difficulty and people are denying all of this, making excuses to murder and kill indiscriminately, it's not something a believer can stand up for. It's not something a believer can allow to happen. We have to utilize whatever wasa'il and means we have to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to approach those leaders who are making these decisions, and we tell them how we feel. We do have power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted that to us. So when we're watching all of this left and right, we have now the power of social media. You open up one of these apps, you can see everything that's happening. There's one narrative that's being shared, the story that political leaders are saying, this is what's occurring, but we see the opposite happening. On the grounds, we see what's happening. We see the defenseless people losing their lives left and right. When you watch a lot of this, and this is happening to all of us, something happens to us. We start feeling a little bit hopeless. We start feeling, what can I do? You become outraged. You go through all of these various emotions. You don't know what to do. And sometimes it's very easy for us to lose hope. But we should never do that. As for those who lose their lives, so many, thousands upon thousands. The number that we quote, if we say 10,000 today, it's probably not even accurate. Probably much more than that. And the number we heard yesterday, it's much more today. And it's just increasing and increasing, and it's causing more grief and more worry and more anxiety in the hearts of every believer, as it should. But those who have lost their lives, as children, a majority children, and those who are older, who reach the age of bulugh, elderly women, grandparents, the weak, the homeless, these people dying. It does cause an effect. However, these are not the people that we're worried about. Those who died, we're not worried about them. And I'll tell you why. We're not worried about those who passed. Because we believe in something called the akhirah. We believe in a yawm al-qiyamah. We believe in the justice of Allah. This dunya isn't the only life that we have. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. The life of the hereafter is a true life. And those who have lost their lives, children, adults, brothers and sisters who've lost their lives, have been taken from them, Allah promises us that they will be in a better situation. A very beautiful passage in Surah Al Imran, verse 169 to verse 173. I'm going to read this to you, and we will see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those who have lost their lives in this manner. The shuhada. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا. Do not think that those who have been killed in the path of Allah. What does it mean, killed in the path of Allah? Someone who harbors, who holds in their heart iman in Allah and His Rasul. They adhere to this, they're firm on this belief, and their lives are taken away. They are also fi sabilillah. Do not think such people who die with iman and a'mal and love for Allah and His Prophet, don't think that they're dead. Allah says they're not dead. Bal ahya, they're alive. They are alive. Inda rabbihim yurzaqun. Allah is the one that is giving them rizq. They are with Allah and He's given them sustenance. You fear for them that what are they going to do? We have to bury them. There's no more food. There's no more. Allah is keeping them alive. They are in a state of life. Allah says, shuhada. The scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they state that shuhada have a ni'mah from Allah. They have a type of life in their grave other than just normal people. This is a huge ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's chapters in the books of fiqh regarding the shuhada. Scholars state as an accolade for them, as a ni'mah and a blessing upon them. You cannot give a ghusl to the shuhada. When the shaheed dies, you're not supposed to wash the body. You leave the body as is and you bury the body as is. Why? There's a hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the shaheed will rise from the grave, and all of these children and women and people who are being killed indiscriminately, they are shuhada. They will rise from their graves on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and those wounds that they have will still be bleeding. However, they won't be bleeding najasa and impurities. They'll be bleeding a red musk. They'll be glowing. They'll smell fragrant. And they will find their oppressors and drag them before Allah for their judgment. Allah promises us this. Do not think that they're dead. They're alive with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَرِيحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. They are happy because Allah has given to them from His grace. Allah has given them much more in the hereafter. وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ. And they are happy for those who are about to join them. So the brothers and sisters who are still alive right now, who we actually worry for, those who are still alive, we're not worried about those who have passed away because Allah is taking care of them. You don't have to worry about a person that Allah is taking care of. But those who are alive, those who have passed away, they're waiting for them and they're happy. We are in such a state of happiness, I can't wait for you to join us. That's how they feel. Allah khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. If they could speak to them, they would say, there's no fear upon you and you should not grieve. What we're witnessing right now, this is the true life. And we've really made it. They're happy. We're worried about those who are currently alive. Allah continues, يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ. They are in a state of congratulating one another. They're so happy, they're jubilant over the ni'mah of Allah and His grace that they are being showered upon. Allah has given them all of these graces, all of these favors. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And they know for a reality now that Allah does not let the efforts of the believer go to waste. They knew whatever I did and whatever I sacrificed and how my life was taken away from me, Allah recognized that. Allah has given me the reward for that and much more. They are aware of that right now. الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِلَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْقَرْحُ لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ وَاتَّقَوْا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. Allah says, those who answered Allah and His Rasul, even though they were in a state of weakness, they were injured, they were harmed, but they never let go of their iman. They're in a state where they have nothing. They have absolutely nothing. They only have Allah. They never let go of their iman. Allah says for them, they have ajr azim. They have a huge reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Sahaba, and this is also reflected in today's time. They're a small group of people, and the army that comes against them are very large, very powerful. They have all the dunyawi means, all the means of this dunya and this life, they have it. They have unlimited amount of money, unlimited amount of combatants, unlimited amount of resources. And the Sahaba, they had nothing. They were hungry. They didn't even have food. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about an incident. Someone came to the Sahaba, and the Sahaba were prepping for battle in this state, where the enemy were more than 3 times their number. The enemy has cavalry, the enemy have swords and shields and food and different bands and people playing music and cheering them on. The Sahaba, they have hungry stomachs. They were fasting in Badr. It was Ramadan. And someone comes to the Sahaba and they say to them, قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَخْشَوْهُمْ. All the enemies have gathered and they're here to harm you. Fear them. Be aware, this is a scary situation. The enemies have come. What does Allah say about the Sahaba in this situation? When someone came to them telling them that the enemies are here to harm you and they're triple your number and they have all resources and you have none and they have hungry stomachs, the Sahaba, Allah says, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. This statement of this person that informed them that an enemy is coming, it didn't harm their morale. It didn't lower the courage of the Sahaba. Allah says, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Their iman even increased. When they heard that there's enemies out to get me, and these people have power, their iman actually increases from that. It doesn't decrease at all. They start feeling more close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say this statement, وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلِ. They get more happy. They say, Allah is enough for me. He is the best handler of affairs. This is the sentiment of the Sahaba, and this is what we see, brothers and sisters in Palestine. They're undergoing this. You see these videos, do you see anyone complaining against Allah? I haven't seen a single one. Rather, what I see is a person lost their family member and they say, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Same statement. Allah is enough for me and He will handle my affairs. They're getting very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when they lose their lives, they have this ni'mah from Allah. They are shuhada. The question is, what are you and I doing? We're not going to have this. It's likely we might not have this position. We hope for it. We want it. I want to be a shaheed. I want to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lift me in ranks. We all do. But Allah chooses who He wants. So we're not worried about those who've lost their lives. We're more worried about the zalimeen. What's going to happen to you? On Yawm al-Qiyamah, you'll be able to see them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in the Quran, where people on Yawm al-Qiyamah will ask Allah, I want to see this person who did this and this to me. I want to see where they are in Jahannam. They'll be in Jannah and a window will open up for them and they can see in Jahannam and they can see those people in Jahannam. This is what's going to happen. They will be able to see the zalimeen. And we also worry for our brothers and sisters who are still alive, for those who are undergoing this torment while we are comfortable. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate their pain and difficulty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us consolence, solace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us solace in the Quran. He says in Surah Al-Talaq, verse number 2, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَّهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَّهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدَرًا. Surah Al-Talaq, verse number 2 is a very beautiful ayah, and this is the guidance that you and I need right now. The entire ummah needs this ayah right now. Allah says, those who fear Allah, Allah will make a way out for them. Don't worry upon the means, don't worry about the means in dunya. How am I going to survive? Where's my money coming from? Where do I go for work? Allah says, if you fear Allah, He'll make a way out for you. And He will give you rizq and sustenance from a place that you have never imagined. He's capable of that. He is the creator of all of these things. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Anyone who trusts Allah, then Allah will be enough. If you trust Allah, He will be enough. Now, if your trust is elsewhere, then you will have to seek that kafaf and you'll have to seek sufficiency elsewhere. But if you have tawakkul and trust in Allah, He will be enough for you. Inna Allah balighu amri. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan and He will reach that plan. قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. Allah has indeed defined every single aspect of this dunya. He knows everything that's going to happen. This is all inside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. This ayah, in summary, Allah is saying, have taqwa, He'll make a way out for you. And if you have taqwa, He will give you rizq and sustenance from a place where you could never imagine. You will be sufficed by Allah, miraculously. Second command, Allah says, have tawakkul and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you do so, He'll be enough. Now, if you don't trust Allah, then your life is going to be difficult. But if you trust Allah, He will suffice you. He will give you from His side. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of everything. So what we learn from this ayah is that there are two things that we need to do. We need to have, number one, taqwa, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number two, we need to have tawakkul, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have fear of Allah, Allah guarantees you two things. Number one, you will be given a way out of your problems. Whatever your problems are. You and I have problems. Every individual have problems in their life. This is what a life is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this dunya as a test. لِيَبَلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. To test you who does the best action. That's what life is about. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have taqwa, He'll make a way out for you. He'll make a pathway. And He'll give you sustenance from a place you didn't even know that it could come to you. So number one, the reward for taqwa, a makhraja, a way out. And number two, rizq and sustenance, if you have taqwa. These are promises from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number two, if you have tawakkul in Allah, it says, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Allah will be enough. In what sense? How will Allah be enough for you? He'll be enough for you in your safety. He'll be enough for you in your sustenance. He'll be enough for you in terms of your family, your wealth, your health. Every aspect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover if you have tawakkul and trust in Allah. So these are two things that we need, taqwa and tawakkul. And this is how we can move forward, inshaAllah. And this is what we can do from our side, along with boycotting, protesting, and all of these things. This is the first and foremost thing that you and I need to keep in mind. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started to recite this ayah. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. He started reciting this ayah. He finished the entire ayah. And then he said, "O Abu Dharr, لَوْ أَنَّ النَّاسَ كُلَّهُمْ أَخَذُوا بِهَا كَفَتْهُمْ." If all of people were to take this ayah, it would have been enough. If only they knew this ayah. Verse number 2, Surah Al-Talaq. It would have been enough for everyone. Taqwa and tawakkul. That's all you need in your life. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he says, إِنَّ أَجْمَعَ آيَةٍ فِي الْقُرْآنِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ. The most comprehensive ayah in the Quran, according to Abdullah bin Mas'ud, is verse 90 of Surah An-Nahl, which we recite in the khutbah every Friday. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى. This is the ayah when brothers here, they just start getting up for the salah. You'll hear it, inshallah. He says this is the most comprehensive ayah in the Quran. وَإِنَّ أَكْثَرَ آيَةٍ فِي الْقُرْآنِ فَرَحًا. As for the ayah that gives you most happiness in the Quran, the ayah that is to make you the most happy, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. This ayah, he who has fear of Allah, Allah will make a way out for him. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. The only condition promised from the creator of the universe is to have taqwa and tawakkul. You will have a way out. Now it's your duty, it's my duty to decide, will I practice this ayah? Do I have faith in the ayah? Or do I have faith in my job? Do I have faith in other individuals? This is a question that we have to ask. So I'm going to talk about taqwa and tawakkul very briefly. What is taqwa? We hear taqwa, usually translated as fear of Allah. Taqwa is mindfulness of Allah, being cognizant, aware that Allah is watching. He is the handler of affairs. Literally, taqwa comes from a word wiqaya in Arabic. The word wiqaya, this is the root word for taqwa. Wiqaya means to protect something from harm. To protect something from harm. This is the root of the word taqwa. So what does taqwa mean? Taqwa means you need to protect your soul from harm. How do you do that? Avoid sin, and even sometimes avoid certain halal that will take you towards sin. This is what taqwa is. Avoidance, abstinence is taqwa. Something haram I stay away from. What are you actually doing when you stay away from haram? You're giving something to Allah. You're making Allah feel better. You're rewarding Allah. You're doing a duty to Allah. No, you're helping yourself. Taqwa means that you are saving yourself from harm. So when you avoid a sin, you're actually doing yourself a favor. And sometimes you even avoid that which is halal because it will take you towards a sin. This is taqwa, and this is what we need in our life. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in one hadith, "Ittaqullah haythuma kunt." Wherever you are, at whatever time, all times, any place, have taqwa of Allah. There's a command from Rasulullah, and Allah commands it in the Quran. You and I, when we hear commandments, we say, okay, 5 times salah is a commandment from Allah. I'm going to do 5 times salah. This is also a command from Allah. Creator of the universe says, have taqwa. So you and I need to do this. He says, have sabr. This is a command. This is also fard. It's not just the 5 pillars that are fard. There's more things that are fard than that. Not just salah, zakah, som, hajj. It's also taqwa is fard. You and I have to have this. It's a command. It's not an option. Ibn al-Mu'taz, he was a poet. He defines taqwa very beautifully. He says, خَلِّ الذُّنُوبَ صَغِيرَهَا وَكَبِيرَهَا ذَاكَ التُّقَى وَاصْنَعْ كَمَاشٍ فَوْقَ أَرْضِ الشَّوْكِ يَحْذَرُ مَا يَرَى لَا تَحْقِرَنَّ صَغِيرَةً إِنَّ الْجِبَالَ مِنَ الْحَصَى. He says, this is taqwa. He says, let go of minor and major sins. This is taqwa. Minor and major sins. Don't do them. This is taqwa. And behave like a person who's walking upon thorns. What happens when a person walks on thorns? He's trying to see, where's the thorn? I need to avoid it. I don't want to get stuck on it. I don't want this to hit my foot. It's going to hurt. This is sin. There's thorns everywhere in our lives. Looking at haram, listening haram, saying haram. These are all thorns. Watch out for them. Don't step on them. لا تحقرن صغيرة إن الجبال من الحصى. Never look down upon even the smallest thorn, the smallest sin. Don't look down on it. Why? He says mountains are made of pebbles. Mountains are made of pebbles. You can take a piece off of a mountain slowly, one piece at a time. Eventually that mountain will be gone. Similarly, if you add rocks in a pile, slowly it'll become a mountain. Don't think it's just a small sin. Let me just go ahead and do it. They will pile up. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, we will see that against us. These small sins that we have piling up. So this is what taqwa is. Being cautious of every small detail. I do not want to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any facet in my life. What is tawakkul? What is trust? We need these two. Taqwa, tawakkul. Number 2, tawakkul means having a wakil. What is a wakil? A wakil is someone you depend on other than yourself, and you use them as a replacement for yourself. In Arabic, you can call a lawyer a wakil, because a defense lawyer, when you go into court, they will speak on your behalf. Taking someone and putting them in your place and letting them handle your affairs is a wakil. Tawakkul means making someone your wakil, making someone your lawyer, for instance. So what does it mean to have tawakkul on Allah? Let Allah handle everything for you. What happens when you have a good lawyer? You hired a great lawyer. You are confident in this person. They will speak on your behalf. You can have a sleepy night. It won't be sleepless. You'll have a nice rest in that night. Because you know, I have trust in this person. He will handle my affairs. He's going to speak on my behalf. Tawakkul means that you do this to Allah. What does this mean? Don't worry. Choose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He'll handle your affairs. If you put that trust in Him, if you hire Allah, then He'll do that. But if you don't, then you have to fend for yourself. If you don't hire a lawyer, you go to court, you have to speak on your own behalf. It's possible. But you're not going to do a good job. You're not trained in this regard. So hire Allah, figuratively, hire Allah as your lawyer. He will handle everything. This is what is tawakkul. Place your trust in Allah. Don't worry. Try your best. Then after you place your trust in Allah. A person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that, I understand, or I've heard of this concept of tawakkul and trusting Allah. I just parked my camel outside. Do I leave my camel to sit there outside, or should I tie the camel down? If I tie the camel down, I'm not really trusting Allah. And if I leave the camel alone, I trust Allah, but then the camel will run off. What is the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Very famous quote, "I'qilha wa tawakkal." Tie down the camel and then have tawakkul in Allah. Which means you do what you can and then you say, oh Allah, I've done what I can. I'm not going to worry about the results. You are the handler of affairs. I'm giving everything to you now. This is tawakkul, and this is what Allah commands. Are we doing this? When you do what you can, you still worry. What's going to happen? What am I going to do? You become anxious. This is not tawakkul. Do everything that you can. After that, you leave it upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You say, I'm not going to do anymore. Oh Allah, I've done what I can. You make dua to Allah. I'm doing tawakkul. I'm handing my affairs to you. You are my lawyer now, and you will do what is best. I trust you. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me and you. It is a command from Allah to have tawakkul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. O believers, have tawakkul in Allah, trust Allah, and you will find Him to be sufficient for the believers. But if you never engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you never choose Allah to be your wakil, you will not know what this is. You will not have the satisfaction of having all of your affairs taken care of. This requires a big step from you and I. It's not easy, because you have to subtract everything you see before you of this dunya and say, no, I am trusting Allah, the one that I cannot see, to handle the affairs that I can see. We place the ghaib before the hadir. We believe in the unseen before we believe in what is before our eyes. You turn on the news, you see what's before your eyes. Is that reality? I rather believe in the ghaib and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Allah knows the truth. I'm going to place my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when do we have taqwa and tawakkul? Taqwa, fear of Allah, abstaining from haram, being cautious, this is taqwa. This is what you and I need to engage in, and it is what is in our control. Taqwa is in your control. Haram comes your way, you can decide, I want to look at that haram or I'm going to turn my gaze away. This is taqwa, choosing the better option, defying your own nafs and allowing what Allah has said to be first and foremost. You have that capability. Haram is being played, some audio, you have that capability to turn your ears away. You can get up and leave. Someone is doing ghiba, you can stop them with your tongue, or you can get up and leave. Someone is doing haram, allowing a genocide to take place, you can get up and say, no, I don't support this. This is taqwa, what you can do. So taqwa is in regards to what you and I can positively do, positive change, doing the right thing. Allah commands this. And then you will have that reward that He says in ayah number 2 of Surah Al-Talaq. What is tawakkul? Tawakkul is for those situations that we cannot control, beyond our control. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided this is going to be the environment, this is what has already occurred, there is a calamity that is going to afflict you, there is a difficult situation coming your way, you cannot remove it. Allah has decided that it's going to happen. Now you need tawakkul. Now you need to trust Allah. Have taqwa, stay away from haram and do good, and then trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need both of these elements, and when you do so, Allah promises, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. He will make a way out, and He will give you sustenance from where you do not even know. This is the promise of Allah. The whole thing here is, do you accept this promise of Allah? Do you want it to be a part of your life, or you're just going to keep on going the way you were? Me, first and foremost. Do I trust Allah? Do I have taqwa? Or do I adopt my own means for my own security? This is a question. And I'll finish with this story. What is mentioned under this ayah in the tafsirs is a very beautiful story. If you were to look in various tafsirs, under this verse that I mentioned, Surah Al-Talaq, verse number 2, they will mention the story of Malik bin Auf al-Ashja'i. He was a Sahabi, and his son was caught by the mushrikeen. The mushrikeen caught his son, and they took him to Mecca. He was imprisoned. They put chains and fetters, and they locked him and sealed him away. This father and his wife, the mother of this child, they were so worried they would have sleepless nights. They couldn't control their grief. They don't know if their son has been executed, killed. What is happening to my child? similar to what our brothers and sisters are facing today. They don't know where their children are. They don't know if they've become shuhada. They don't know if they're hungry or under rubble. So he was going through a similar situation. I don't know what's happening to my child. I don't know how much sabr I can have. He came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Oh Nabi, they took my child. Everything. I would give everything that I have to rescue my child." Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Have sabr. Have sabr. If you can reach him, tell him to say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no power nor might except with Allah. Trust in Allah. When you can't control your circumstances, trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." And he recommended to them to say this. There's two different narrations. One that the son actually received this news. He says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Another where the parents are doing this zikr constantly. Mother and father. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Only power is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one has power but him. Not the mushrikeen, not these people who have chained my child. So according to one narration, the parents are saying, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Continuously thinking about this, having their faith in Allah. And the other situation, what's happening with the son, he gets this news from someone, and he starts saying, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. He's chained physically. He can't move. Suddenly, miraculously, as he's saying the zikr, the chains open. They fall off of him. And he's looking, the chains opened up. So he got out of the chains. He walks outside of his cell. He sees a camel ready to go. He gets on the camel. He sees many, many other camels and sheep as well. So he ties them all together onto his camel and he just starts going away. Just left the area. Back home in Medina, parents are saying, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. They hear a knock on the door. And someone is saying salam. So the father, Auf bin Malik al-Ashja'i, he says, Wallahi, this is my son. His wife is saying, how is this possible? He's chained up by the mushrikeen, the enemies of Islam. We don't even know if they executed him. They open the door. Not only is the child before them, he has a bunch of camel and sheep as well, mal. He says, Subhanallah, this is a promise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's confused. Is this even halal? This is not my camels. It's so many camels and sheep. And you should know camels are considered like cars. As a whole fleet of cars before the door. He goes to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He asks him, can I partake of this? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam recites the ayah. The ayah was revealed. Those who fear Allah, Allah will make a way out. And Allah will give them rizq and sustenance from a place that they could never imagine. And those who trust in Allah, He is enough for them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan for everything. So you and I need to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has a plan for you and I. Allah has a plan for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make a way out. But you and I need to have tawakkul in Allah, taqwa in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to do everything in our capability and adopt the means and then trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq to have these beautiful gems of iman, taqwa and tawakkul. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.